we must bring the one and only Paolo Vidali inside of here. He's the CEO of Hidden Gears. And I believe that he's got some other things going on the interwebs as well that I'm interested to dig into. He has been on the development side for Shopify Plus, PPC, SEO since time gone by. We're talking 2012, which was basically like, did the internet even exist back then? Yes, it did. I was alive. I'd actually already graduated college. This dates me a little bit, but we must bring him inside of this show to talk a little sauce on the interwebs today. Everybody, welcome the one and only Paolo Vidali, CEO of Hidden Gears. Get into it, Paolo. Get inside this show.
Oh,
how's it going?
Look at that tie. Look at that tie.
Bolo tie.
Well,
wow.
You guys, yeah.
Man, you know, that makes me feel comforted, Paolo. Man, what a great touch by you. We appreciate you making the time and joining us today, Paolo.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Man, I'd love for you to Google Earth out a little bit and tell us some of your story and all that you have going on, Paolo. Man, you know, a little lore, a little Paolo lore, and what all you have going on the interwebs today, my friend.
Yeah. Well, basically, I've been a super nerd for a really long time, and
there we go.
You know, I got into the web super early. I built my first website for money when I was 13, I think. So that was something like 1996, 7.
Crazy.
So, you know, it's been a long journey. I've seen Web 1.0, I've seen responsive web, I've seen 2.0, I've seen 3.0, and somehow I just keep rolling with the punches and now experimenting with AI. But yeah, I've been a world traveler, which has been probably the best part of working digitally and remotely for years and years, and have been growing, you know, slowly but surely a Shopify agency, and now doing a little dev staff augmentation agency too, based in Europe. And yeah, I've been developing for Shopify since 2009, when Toby used to provide support via the forum. That's how you got things fixed, and just was kind of in the early Wild West days of e-commerce, and seen it grow just like in such crazy ways. So yeah, it's been a pleasure being here.
Wow. So you've publicly said that, you know, summer is your technical Black Friday, Cyber Monday prep season. What should brands technically be decluttering in Q2, Q3 to prepare for that Q4 behemoth season?
Yeah, and this is prime season. A lot of people are taking vacation, but I think all Ecomm operators are kind of, there's a little bug in the back of their brains of like, oh, it's coming, you know. A big one right now that I'm seeing, you know, we are a Klaviyo partner. We don't do email marketing as a service, but just as part of the making sure all the connections are flowing and setting up logic for folks and so forth, there's a lot of email flow cruft. Like if someone signs up in the footer versus the pop-up versus a section module, like where are they going? Like, are they going anywhere? Are they getting the same flows? Is the price and product info on the flow that you set up last year still relevant? I've seen 404s in, you know, automation flows, and they're like, oh, our conversion rate's only, you know, X, Y, or Z. And just really being your own customer and like making sure that you can go through and step through all the processes. Automation is great. I think people are now turbocharging automation with AI and stuff, but it's easy to set things up and forget it, but then not realize that things have moved on, things have changed. And I also think it's a great time to get rid of old low volume inventory, clean up the warehouse, clean up the books, clean up the amount of products that you need to, you know, hard mark change during Q4, get that clearance section done. We have a lot of clients who are doing, you know, summer clearances for that reason. It's just to get the number of SKUs down, get the number of things that customer service going to get pinged. Oh, is this coming back in stock? Do you have more of this, etc. For those things that you know you're closing out. Good time to set up logic that you know, prevents the notify me emails from being eligible for those things that are truly on clearance. Because what I see is during Q4, it's all those CS queries, all those extra touches for things that are not, you know, core to the business are going to really streamline things.
Yeah, Paolo, I find what you do on this kind of like technical side with Of course, websites, but other things as well. A little bit, I find it mysterious because I am not the most technical of persons. I would love to hear about the like ROI of like actually thinking about your code base. I say this because, man, a couple examples. There was a few years ago, I was working with one of the like wild fastest growing like stores on Shopify. And man, we were on a Shopify 1.0 Frankenstein website, I mean, and it was like a big deal. Like, hey man, we've got to like make this transition and everything. There was another example that happened just this past year, Paolo, where one of my friends, Meta, its various changes, man, his CPMs, like his ad performance, like degraded. His CPMs like tripled overnight.
Yeah.
Okay. And we like couldn't recover him. And then we did all this stuff. He went in and like cleaned up his code base. And then I don't know if it's direct correlation, okay, or direct causation, but his CPMs cut in half after he did that. It was totally mysterious, okay. But
Yeah.
I say this to say, man, talk to me about like the ROI of like actually looking at and thinking about your code base. For a ROAS minded founder, et cetera. How do you have that conversation and help people think about it?
Yeah, I mean, no one really wants to redo old work or refactor things, right? But I would say the ROAS on refactoring at the last minute for an emergency is very, very poor, right? It's like it's already costing you money, costing you sales, putting up all the fire alarms. It's too late. We work with folks, our clients for many, many years. As a 13-plus-year-old company, we have a 13-year-old tenured client. And that's those type of long-term relationships allow us to really try to get people to plan ahead and say, look, this website's still working. It still looks good. Yeah, maybe there's a brand refresh coming. Yeah, maybe you're coming out with new products, but our goal is always to build things that are sustainable. But over time, Shopify changes, the web changes, the whole architecture of themes changes.
Yeah.
And there's a point to what you just said is that you can get away with it, and then there's a point where it becomes a bottleneck, or worse, it becomes a collapse of something that is core to your system. I think trying to pitch refactoring is always interesting. I would say, I mean, that's another one of those downtime things. January, February, things are slower. You're processing returns. You're not doing big changes other than that. Early summer, etc. We have opportunities. I think it's easy, especially with the smaller businesses, more in startup mode. Early days, it's just like everything is go 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 all the time. But if we can plan for actually making those core improvements, it's like preventative health to me. People say, why is healthcare so expensive, et cetera, et cetera. And like, do we really need to go to a doctor if there's like nothing wrong with me? Well, turns out sometimes there is, because you never know what's kind of cooking behind the scenes. I think for folks who are switching teams or switching internal team members or changing agencies, there's always that opportunity where it's like, we're going to look at something with fresh eyes, have that editorial perspective and say, why is this set up like this? And then sometimes you ask folks and they're like, I don't know, that's just how our last person did it.
Yeah.
And, we kind of trip over ourselves. But I would say it's an easier thing to do if you can quantify how much time is being spent on the workarounds, on those extra tickets, on the CS teams, bless them, who are just jumping through these 15-step routines to try to make stuff work. And at the end of the day, you're like, how much are you paying all those folks hourly? How many things are you even maybe nowadays trying to and failing to automate with AI because it's too complicated? The process doesn't even make sense when you try to write it down, right? And I think it's one of those very subtle things where if we've done our job right and we refactor something, there is no issue. And in the absence of the issue, it's hard to claim success because there's no problem, but that is the actual success of the project, right?
Good point. That's a good
So
point.
it's just it's a matter of perspective. And I think at the end of the day, part of the reason I'm in e-commerce is I really like that everything's trackable and accountable and turns into money, because then you can justify your existence, right? You can say, hey, if we do this, this will be smoother, this will work better, this will convert more, etc. And for backend processes, it's a little more disconnected, but it's still like, hey, if we're spending 10 hours a week trying to patch this thing, if we spent 40 hours and then the problem just went away forever, then that's worth it, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, that's totally on the nose. You've spent almost nearly 2 decades cleaning up these crazy technical messes in the back end of Shopify brands. What is the most expensive one that you've ever found? Or just a true horror story where you've come across this, looked under the hood of the car, and you are going, I don't even know how you're even alive right now. And then had that conversation.
I think some of the trickiest have been with high volume, popular, limited run brands. And what I mean by that is, like, we work with extremely popular apparel brands that had this cult following, huge on Instagram, right? Tons of ambassadors. People would essentially every time a new product came out, it was a flash sale. It was like this limited edition drop. We found this fabric, we're making this thing. People loved it. And it became this thing where they had so many SKUs across so many different individuated products, but they were also low run, because it's like, well, how many extra small, how many small, etc. You're making dozens of each. So it's almost like a little custom fashion shop or something, but at scale. And so when they came to us, they were, I think, a $15 million business. I wouldn't be surprised if now they're a $75 million business, right? But they had an inventory sync lag where their WMS, their warehouse management software, their 3PL, their third-party logistics, couldn't sync back to Shopify fast enough, which meant they oversold almost every SKU. And it was just wrecking the brand. And I'll never forget, I mean, their CEO on a call was like, Paolo, talk me off the ledge here. Like, how can we fix this? This is like my entire, like, this is going to destroy everything, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of pressure to deal with. Like, okay, I'm going to try to fix this, right? But I think the lost sales per month in refunds was like 100 grand or more. But the brand sentiment was getting torpedoed. The hours of team labor, they couldn't do anything else except try to continually fight this fire. The entire business was just going to cease to function. So they're like, we have no idea what's in our warehouse. This is a $15 million a year company. So they had probably $5 million of product at any given time in the warehouse. And, of course, then there's pointing fingers because no one wants to be responsible. So the 3PL said it was the WMS. The WMS people said it was the Shopify API. The Shopify said, this is not us. And I need to basically come in and say, okay, how many calls are you making per second to Shopify? What's the actual plus rate limit? How can we, offload this and do this asynchronously? How can we, change this, and like hold people's feet to the fire a little bit in terms of like what is actually possible with each one of these tools and systems to make sure that we could actually just max out every pipeline to make it work. And the cool thing is, they got through it. They ultimately did switch 3PLs because a bad 3PL will absolutely destroy a brand. Not only just the delivery and the customer experience, but also just the cost. I mean, we've had brands that work with a bad 3PL and they sign a contract, and then 6 months later they get billed and they're like, what is this for? And it's like, oh, this was for 5 months ago, and we were actually 3 times over the charges that you expected, but you can't audit us, and like that's the way it is, and now you're in this contract, you can't get out of it, stuff like that. So I would say these type of like inventory logistics, if anything is amiss with your inventory, you don't have a system of record where you're saying this is the source of truth and this is how it goes here and this is the conditions in which it can sync and directionally and so forth. it goes sideways pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Paolo, I can testify. I can testify to your talk about a bad 3PL.
Same here.
I have experienced. I have experienced
Yeah.
that. I have heard. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have heard there's some kind of story with you where there's like we found one misplaced colon that was costing somebody tens of thousands of dollars. Is this? I mean, is this real? If it is, I want to hear about it.
Yeah, this was a different apparel client, and if you, the reason why apparel is particularly complicated is because if you have so many SKUs, so many sizes, so many colors, different fabrics, different fits, right? So the product databases are very complicated, and how you cross-link those together in terms of visual merchandising is complicated, right?
Yeah.
And so we inherited Codebase from a client, and somebody had written it all out in JavaScript, how the product select worked, where you pick your size and then it shows you the option for the next thing and the next thing conditionally based on what's available, what different sizes are available for what fabrics and so forth. But then they had minified it and, and sent it, and then we didn't have any other code. And so the minified code, they replaced all the variables. Either they replaced all the variables or someone wrote it this way. Someone wrote it this way. It's just truly evil. But they used every single letter of the alphabet as a JavaScript variable, uppercase and lowercase. And so if you think about that, includes uppercase O, which looks like a 0.
Oh.
I mean, it's just like it was the worst. And yeah, it was thousands of lines of code. And there's just a weird phantom bug where you're getting these customer service reports where like every 55th time or something, someone would click on the product selector, it would show up as having selected, and they add to cart, and it would take the default variant, which was like the smallest size, in the first
gosh, man,
and if you didn't notice that in checkout, you get a small blue whatever instead of the medium green, product that you thought you were getting, and this was leading to returns, and this was leading to all kinds of stuff. But it was just one of those things where I have a background in QA, so I work for software companies like as a full-time professional QA tester, and so I was like, I'm just gonna hammer down and get this thing to break, and it was the least consistent bug I've ever probably come across. And what I found was in one of those lines, literally a single line, someone had accidentally put a semicolon instead of a colon. And for whatever reason, based on, and this was across Safari, Chrome, Firefox, Opera, you name it, most of the time there was no stumble. And then every once in a while, it would just cause a little browser memory thing. And it would just brick, right? And that probably caused, 10 hours plus of debugging, at least, just not including QA, just, the JavaScript, just rewriting, huge swaths of it, anything that seemed related. I had a crazy wall, just completely Charlie Day style of, okay, M equals N times lowercase m minus Z, which means that, it was wild.
Crazy.
Wow. Could you talk to us a little bit about your take on vibe coding? Because yours is a bit, it's a bit contrarian right now, where you have basically labeled it as like a hidden profit killer. Could you talk more about this?
Oh, please.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, vibe coding is the quickest way that we've figured out in the history of mankind to accrue technical debt, right? Because you can code things where, like, I've talked to folks and, friends of mine who are doing cool little projects, and they don't even know what language it's been vibe coded in, right? And that to me is wild. They're like, where is the information being stored? What database are you using? Like, what's a database? And you're like, wow, okay. And that's fine for personal passion projects, but people are doing that at scale. It's not to say that vibe coding isn't amazing in its own right. And of course, it's always getting better and so forth. But I mean, there's a time cost benefit. I think there's people who think, well, I'm just going to vibe code this. This is going to be a temporary fix. And of course, a temporary fix doesn't exist. It's always a permanent fix. It's always something that just lives forever in your code base. It can be a great way to unlock, a solution to something where you're just been stuck. And if you are a dev and you have that knowledge, you're like, I don't know how to make this work. And you go into vibe coding, you go into a different approach, or you debug with AI, like that can be amazing, right? I think it's totally appropriate for making small components quickly, or to scaffold large components quickly where you're kind of finishing it. But to me, the line is sort of like, what is this component or system doing that you're trying to vibe code? And if it's mission critical, if it's involved in conversion, if it's involved in, significant areas of your site or business that are actually, can be a major stop sign in the road to you actually doing the thing that you need to do on the site, then it's probably not a great idea to vibe code it. Another thing I think people miss if they're not technically minded, Shopify, of course, now has this vibe code AI section, which we've had clients do and it's turned out fine. But a lot of times people do it on their desktop computer and they don't think about, oh, what does it look like on mobile? Or if it looks kind of okay on mobile, but not great, they're like, oh, let's send it, right? And I think that's also this zone we're in now where AI is good enough, but not great. So that output is good enough if you're a solopreneur and you don't have to pay an agency, hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars to build something. Like, sure, if that's good enough to get where you're going, to rapidly prototype it, to get something out there as MVP, that's fine. But if you care about brand and you care about customers, or you have high volume coming through the door, it's probably not appropriate as a baseline.
Yeah. What if we get Terminator 2 Mythos, Paolo? Then all our problems will be solved. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Paolo, man, we appreciate you making the time to join us, brother, and dropping some sauce on us. But I think the big takeaway for me here is how valuable your code base is, and even a mistyped colon may end up costing you thousands of dollars. Man, tell everybody where to find you, follow you, talk with you, get some of your brain should they so need. Where can people find you on the interwebs, Paolo?
Yeah, primarily at hiddengears.com. That's where we're doing our Shopify agency, and we do consultations and audits and all that fun stuff as well. Trying to be more active and interesting on LinkedIn these days. So look me up at Paulo Vidali on LinkedIn. And I would say, on our website, we also have a newsletter. So I try to share monthly just what's most interesting to me coming out of all the different AI news, all the different Shopify news, all the different marketing news, and kind of flag with a little bit of commentary on like, hey, maybe pay attention to this, or this just came out, this actually matters for a reason. Try to be a little bit of a technical filter. So that's free to sign up on our website as well.
Love. And then we're going to need to follow up and make sure that we get some of those bolos like you as well, Paolo.
I'll give you
only fitting for the show. Sure. Brother, we appreciate you making the time to join us. Look forward to having you back, man. Thank you,
awesome.
Brother.
Great talking. Cheers.